Now that we've looked at some of the more basic calculation functionality in Mosaic, we're going to look at some of the more complicated ones. But again, these are still very simply executed within Mosaic. The first one I'm going to look at is what we call an analysis group. This is basically creating a cube or a cross table within Mosaic. Now, as you'll remember earlier, we looked at the percentage sum of the amount invested per asset, and then when I clicked into Q1, Q2, Q3, it automatically recalculated. But now what I'm going to do is actually compare the amount that we invested in each asset by quarter, so we no longer have to drill in, drill out. I can see it at a glance. So I'm going to name this analysis group as Quarterly Invest Analysis, and I add that aggregate. So here I'm going to look at the percentage sum of the amount invested in my first dimension, which is going to be the asset type. Your first dimension is effectively your x-axis. And I'm going to click Create Cross Table. And I'm going to select the quarter classification. Now at this point what I'm going to do is click on Value List, and because we only have 1 month in Q4, I'm going to exclude this from our analysis because it might skew it. And then I'm going to click Accept. Now when I click OK, we've created our cross table. Again, this is a collapsible attribute, so I can open it and close it, and I can place it anywhere on the screen. But what we've got here are the asset types, the percentage sum of the amount invested in Q1 versus Q2 versus Q3. So as you can see, for bonds, we've gone from 8.8% in Q1 to 8.46 in Q2 to 7.19 in Q3. And again, if I choose this time Barclays, those numbers recalculate automatically to show me our exposure to Barclays. What I'm going to do now is show you some of the formula calculations you can do in Mosaic. Here we have a number of functions. We can do text searches. We can concatenate the data. We can search specific terms, which means we can do a lot of textual analysis in Mosaic. What I'm going to look for is going to be pretty simple. And we're going to put this if clause in there. So I insert the function. And what I can say is, if the amount is greater than or equal to, let's say, 10 million, then we can put in high net worth. If it's false, we can put in low net worth. And I will create the new attribute. And as we see, it will be inserted after the count here. So now what I can do automatically is say, okay, well, let's look at our high net worth customers, or potentially our low net worth customers, because I've just created a classification on what's important for my business, which is the amount of money these people are spending with me. For you it may be different. And again, I can do a count at this point. So I can go back to my simple attributes and say, show me a count of the key by my if clause. So as you can see, we've got 3,638 high net worth trades, whereas we've only got 868 low net worth, which is probably a good thing. Again, I can rename this attribute, so I can put it down as customer classification. Finally, we're going to look at classifications, which is very similar to the if clause I've just created, but this is more of a wizard. And we're also going to look at case differentiation. So here in classification, we're going to look at the percentage sum attribute. So I'm going to say if the percentage sum is less than 15%, I'm going to call this low. I'm going to say if it's less than or equal to 15%, we're going to call it okay. And if it's greater, we're going to call it high. So now what I'm going to do is look at our percentage sum invested. And I'm going to say if that's less than 15%, I'm going to call that low. I'm going to say here, if it's greater, so anything greater than 15%, I'm going to call that high. I'm going to delete this one. So now that I've got the two rules in there, when I click new attribute, as we can see, we've got all our low points of investment and all our high reclassified. The final bit is what we call case differentiation. And this is very similar to the if clause, except for it allows you to put several in this box here. So for example, if the percentage sum of investment is less than 15% and it's a low net worth individual, then call it X.